Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition, 1 week away from the NFL draft. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessean, Pay for Good Journalism. I am Braden Gall. Thank you for hanging out with us. If you are on YouTube, thumbs up, like the show, notifications turned on. If you're watching on a social media app of choice, please share that product right now. Jump into the comment section. We've got a mock draft. Good morning again to you, Eddie. I'm just all over the place today. Had to do our Preds season-ending show on the Gold Standard podcast. Also brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Lots of synergy on the interwebs this morning. Hey, Joe, how are you? Synergy, yep. Most overused word.
Yeah.
Most overused word in the history of marketing and advertising. But
if I repeat the joke a third time, Braden will hear it.
I heard, go again.
Synergy.
There you go. It's hilarious. Okay, so obviously, Josh says 440 has no respect for my workday. Yes, good to see you, Josh. Look, the Preds season ended last night, and they're in a very similar place than the Titans, picking in the top three after an awful season. So again, even the two professional sports teams working together to create a brand in this city. There you go. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue are your two local businesses that are supporting our draft party starting next Thursday. Of course, we will go live when the Titans are on the clock. All you can eat Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, all you can drink from Sinkers Beverages at the Track One building in Wedgwood, Houston. Tickets are only $30 for that night. We have a few more left, so make sure you go buy those tickets. Come out and support us and come hang out and have a good time. All the money goes to kids to help kids. So if you hate kids, don't come out and don't buy tickets. But if you love kids and you like the future generation in this country, which, by the way, someone has to stand up for those kids in our country these days. You can come out and hang out and drink and party. Jason, you were there last year. I assume we're going to see Jason this year. So I hope. And yes, rocking the Nashville Severe Weather cap to support our guys, Will and Andrew and David over there doing God's work. It's all about local businesses, Nick. It's all about local businesses. Today on the show, by the way, the links for those are in the podcast app of choice. If you're listening after the fact, if you're watching live, they are already in the show notes on the YouTube page as well. So there you have it. We're going to do the mock draft. So I was looking at the Tennessean, as one does before doing a show with Nick Suss, and it has linked in there like 13 mock drafts.
I've done a lot of mock drafts.
Are you on what? Are you on 14.0? Is that what you're on right now?
I think that next week will be 15 and 16. It works out to whatever it is one every Monday since the season has ended, plus an extra bonus one during the week of free agency.
But this is the first and only a football show mock draft.
Sure.
So this is 1.0 and the last one that we're going to do. So this is the only one. We're going to do a mock draft more, you know us, you know how we do things. It's going to be like, here's who I'm picking, but really like, here's the conversation around this pick. So we're going to do that. We're going to do our mock draft. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about Cam Ward and how everyone missed on him coming out of high school. You did a great article, talked to a lot of college coaches and some folks in the recruiting business. I, of course, got started in the recruiting business, so it's going to be a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to that. Soren says, is today the day you sell me on the trade up? Are you suggesting they trade up from 35 into the first round? Is that what you're talking about? Because they can't go higher than one.
Trade up from one, man. Picking 0.
Would trading the first pick for Joe Burrow count as trading up?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, it would. It would.
That would count.
That would be good.
I would give up this first pick and next year's first round pick to go get Joe Burrow.
I would too. You know what? I'd also trade for Josh Allen.
Sold.
Yeah.
Well, but Josh Allen's not actually going anywhere. Joe Burrow. You never know. So, okay, going to be a fun day today on the show. Do appreciate it. Good to see all you guys. Joe, QC, Josh, Soren, Jason, everybody. So get into the comments if you have questions. We will answer those questions and we will discuss as we go along. Here's one from Eddie. Would they skip on Burden at 35 if he was there? We'll get to that in our mock draft 1.0.
We'll get there.
1.14.0.
0.0.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. So so one of the things I wanted to ask you about before you actually before I read the article and we talked about, hey, this is going to be what we're talking about on the show, is that there is this narrative, and not to go back to the Baker Mayfield comp, that's not what I'm doing here, but there is a similar recruiting story to Baker Mayfield than there is to Cam Ward. That is that Baker Mayfield, Lake Travis High School, Texas player, big-time prospect, or big-time player, but not a big-time prospect. He does not get any offers really out of college, out of high school, and he walks on famously at Texas Tech. There's a lot of like Patrick Mahomes and Davis Webb and a bunch of other reasons. Then he goes to Oklahoma, I think also as a walk-on, and earns a scholarship.
Correct.
Famously as a kid from Austin, Lake Travis is in Austin, so he hates Texas, and because Texas didn't offer him a scholarship. Very Drew Brees of them. And so there is this story about former walk-on Heisman Trophy winner Baker Mayfield gets picked number 1 in the draft. And I've also seen some folks complaining that Cam Ward's not necessarily getting the same treatment as Baker Mayfield. Number one, do you think that is real? Because I think there's a lot of respect and love for Cam Ward's journey from Incarnate Word to Washington State and to Miami. I think it's been covered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is Baker Mayfield more because he was a higher profile player in college, because he won the Heisman and he grabbed his twig and berries and planted a flag and did all kinds of goofy stuff that got him attention? Or is there truth to the fact that Cam Ward's not getting the respect he deserves from a story standpoint?
I think that part of it is that Cam has not necessarily worn the story as publicly as Baker did. I think that Baker was very outwardly motivated by the adversity that he had created for himself. And I think that Cam was a little bit more inward about that. And you guys can read about this in the story of like, I don't think it's very public how much Cam has used the coaches that didn't recruit him as motivation.
It's very Amon-Ra St. Brown.
But like, it's there. There are coaches, and we'll keep names out of this for respect to whomever. But like, there are coaches that Cam was just like, oh, you didn't think I could play for you? Well, I'll show you. And so I don't think that was I think that part of Baker's whole mystique was he kept a list and let everybody know about the list. I don't think Cam's been out here letting people know about the list. I think he's just been balling out since the first day he played.
I think that's true. And so, well, Coach Will says Cam doesn't use his past as an excuse. Can we get Nick to do his best Zombieland? Hang on. I'll do Bill Murray. Anyway, Jake says good afternoon from the UK. I think I just think it's about the personality. I just think Cam is a more private, quieter person, and despite what he says on online video games about Treylon Burks being one of the 4 best receivers in the NFL, he has a pretty good sense of humor, clearly. Yeah. But he's just not overt about it. And again, Baker Mayfield was overt every step of the way about this. Like, again, even on the field in games, he was doing stuff to draw attention to himself in a different way than Cam ever has.
Yeah, there's a different kind of cool. I would say they are both aspirationally cool, but Baker in a you can be this good kind of way, and Cam in a you can't be this good kind of way. Like, right. That's probably the difference in how they handle themselves.
No, I think that's exactly correct. All right, so first and foremost, going into the story, go pay for good journalism, Tennessean.com, about sort of how and why Cam ended up as basically a no-star recruit with no major offers, going to Incarnate Word, which is a very small FCS school in Texas, where of course he is now has thrown more touchdown passes than any other player in the history of college football, 158, I believe, if you count FCS. What did you have a preconceived notion going into this? I know that's not good journalism, but what was unexpected about writing the story?
Essentially, the thing that caught my mind is I'd heard so many people say, well, he played in the wing tee. Why did they play him in the wing tee? Why couldn't he play he played in the wing tee? So I grew up playing wing tee football, as so many of us did, I assume. I don't know. Maybe nobody else in the stream played in the wing tee.
No. I didn't play in the wing tee, but it was as close to wing tee as you could get without being wing tee. It was fullback, tight end, 2 receiver sets, under center with a tailback almost at all times.
Yeah. And so not only did I grow up understanding that the wing tee doesn't mean that you can't throw, I also covered Georgia football at a time where they took a quarterback named Bryce Ramsey, who was a 4-star playing in the wing tee. And I've seen the stories about Brett Favre playing in the flex bone or whatever it was. Like, there are so many stories of
kill Mississippi.
Yeah. Just because you didn't throw the ball a bunch in high school doesn't preclude you from getting stars. That can't be the full story, right? And so I talked to Brent Maschek, who was his high school coach at West Columbia, and the story kind of starts unfurling of he's like, we had 12 showcases for Cam his senior year. Like, college coaches were in and out of the room all the time. He had Jimbo Fisher on his couch saying, yeah, I love the kid. They had Big 12 coaches, SEC coaches. They had just about every school in Texas coming through. Everybody had the opportunity to know who he was. Does that mean everybody knew who he was? Not exactly. And please go read the story, Tennessean.com. It's up there. I really am proud of how it came out. But I think that his story is one that's a really fascinating look at what the recruiting industry actually is, of who gets rewarded for what, of how coaches are kind of incentivized to take players who are more ready instead of the players who have the highest ceiling, of, oh, this guy could play as a freshman. That makes him a 5-star. Whereas I talked to Daryl Dickey, who was Texas A&M's offensive coordinator at the time, who says, yeah, he's on our campus. He's at camp throwing against Haynes King, who was a 4-star at the time, throwing against Jalen Milroe, who was a 4-star at the time. Both of those guys had Texas A&M offers. Cam was throwing a better ball than those guys. But those guys had the offers. Cam didn't, because he didn't have the stars, because he was playing at a smaller school. And let's not pretend it was this middle of nowhere school. He grew up an hour outside of Houston. Like,
a lot of 5-star players, in small schools outside of Houston.
You should be able to find a kid outside of Houston.
Yeah.
But if the recruitniks aren't going to West Columbia and there's not a bunch of throwing tape on Cam, you can't watch him off the tape, you're not seeing it in person. He goes to these camps, but the recruiting analysts at the camps are paying attention to the people who already have the stars and offers. And so, like, there's this quote from Daryl in the story where he essentially says, look, we knew what he was, but nobody else was looking at him. So you kind of have to ask why. And so it's this re-incentivization process of, well, I don't want to be the one to go out on the limb. And I'm not blaming Daryl by any stretch.
It's Kevin Costner. Yeah. It's Kevin Costner with Bo Callahan in draft day.
Yeah.
He's like, what are we missing here, guys? What are we missing here on this guy? Because
Cam's high school coach told me he had a Big 12 quarterbacks coach on his hands and knees begging a head coach, just offer him. Just offer him. Like, look at what he can do. Just offer him.
Yeah.
And he didn't get the offer. And then we can talk about the insidious rumors all we want. Braden, you've worked in the recruiting industry. You don't have to confirm or deny. But we all know there is some semblance of, well, if one school offers him, he's a 3-star now. Like, you need that one offer. And then once you got that offer, oh, he's got a Power 5 offer. That's a 3-star talent. We know it works backwards instead of forwards sometimes. And so the story of Cam Ward being a 0-star recruit, it's not the Hollywood, oh, this kid was cut from his JV team and he had to work. Like, the coach says he shows up for an 8th grade tryout and throws a 50-yard flood route on the run. Like, dude had natural talent.
So I have so many feelings and thoughts about this. And I'm really glad you wrote the story. It really turned out great. I agree with you. So you should be proud of it. Everybody go read it. But I have some, there's some anecdotes and some stories and some myths I want to kind of address with all of this. So one of the things that I remember all the time that I keep in my mind about recruiting is the Miami Northwestern high school football team from, I don't know what year this would have been, 2009, 2010-ish, 2008 maybe. This was Ja'Cory Harris was the quarterback. Tommy Streeter was a wide receiver. There was like a guard, a defensive end, a line. Like, there were 9 players that I think got Division I offers off that one team. They won the state championship at Florida at the highest level. This was a loaded high school football team. Every 5-star quarterback, 4-star receiver, 4-star guard, 4-star pass rusher, all these different players that were all 6 or 7 top 100 players, a couple of the 3-star players. And the only one who didn't get a major offer was Levante David. Levante David, pretty good NFL football player.
Sure. Fringe Hall of Famer.
He was a 2-star who ended up going to Nebraska after going to junior college. Now, that was because of grades to some degree. The grades were a factor in all of this. But I'm always reminded of recruiting rankings ranked 8 players on this team as very high profile, all of whom got very big offers, and none of whom went on to play in the NFL, some of whom played varying degrees of good football in college. But the best player on the team was the lowest rated recruit on the team, Levante David. But that was for other reasons. So that's number one. Number one, sometimes there's always a reason why you might get a 2 or a 3-star rating, because people don't think you're going to go, for whatever reason, into major college football right away. That's number one.
Totally.
But this story feels a little bit more like the perfect blend of all the issues that we have with this particular industry, all coming home to roost at one time. And some of that is Cam. Like, hey, maybe he's a little out of shape. He certainly plays in an offense that doesn't allow him to showcase his skills. Small town in Texas, I agree, should be easy to find, but still, that kind of thing. Like, if the level of competition is a question, the offense is a question, he's a little bit out of shape, but he's got tons of ability. Then you have then there's other coaches that aren't offering and don't see it. Then the recruiting industry picks up on that. And here's the thing about the industry. I don't actually have a problem with the tail wagging the dog a little bit on this. I think if 5 of us are sitting around and 2 of us work for Rivals like I did, and 3 of you are assistant coaches, and we're all sitting around, and the 2 guys for Rivals are like, I think he's a 3-star. And the 3 coaches who coach in the SEC as assistants are like, no, we're offering him, he's a 4-star. I'm okay with the recruiting industry saying, well, maybe they're right, we're not.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm actually fine with the services saying, well, if Nick Saban thinks pretty highly of this guy, if Jim Harbaugh thinks highly of this guy, if Jimbo Fisher thinks highly of, well, maybe not Jimbo, then I maybe we need to reevaluate a little bit and add some value to this player. I think the insidious part of the recruiting business is tied to money.
Yeah.
Which is their biggest websites are going to get more treatment, more coverage, more resources. And that is Nebraska, Texas, Florida State. Like, these are huge communities of money for the people that own them. And they're more likely, the Alabama website has been owned by the guy who's launched all the companies. Shannon Terry has owned Bama Online at Rivals, at 24/7, and at On3. He owns it. So you don't think he has vested interest in the Alabama website doing better than the other ones? Of course he does. So I think that's important to remember. So
sure.
all of that to say, coaches are wrong, they miss. Mm-hmm. Players don't necessarily show up and wow people all the time. Players have to develop and change. The offensive system didn't help him. I think it's a perfect storm of everything.
Yeah.
And coaches, Jimbo Fisher, who's the one quoted in the one that you talk about in the story, and I'm sure there are others, coaches think they know everything.
Yes.
They do. Sometimes they're right. Jimbo Fisher has been wrong many times.
Yeah.
And if you're a holier than thou offensive guru that runs the system based on what I do, and I'm not really great at, tweaking the system, evolving, making changes, there are a number of head coaches like this. Jimbo Fisher is one of them. Famously, $76 million to go away because he would not adapt his offense from one of the slowest in all of college football to 2020 modern.
Yeah.
And so it's all of this stuff combined. And I still think it's shocking that he doesn't end up at Houston at the time, which is a small, not at the time, it's not a Power 4 school. It's a Group of 5 school at the time, or UTSA, North Texas, programs that have a little bit of history of good quarterback play in the state who play at a higher level than Incarnate Word.
And part of it is the sure thing, but like the quarterback they took over Cam Ward was Haynes King. And we are not slandering Haynes King. Dude has
love Haynes King.
Done a good job at Georgia Tech since transferring. Good player. But the difference between Haynes King and Cam Ward is Haynes King was playing 6A Texas high school football. He won a state championship as a junior, and his dad is a 17-time regional champion as a coach and athletic director at a powerhouse school in Northeast Texas. Like, he is coming from a place that is where quarterbacks are supposed to come from.
Quinn Ewers.
It is, the machine is built to reward people who do this. And the other quarterback, speaking of QC Hawk's comment right here about 20th season, the other quarterback they took that year was Zach Calzada, who was also still somehow in college football.
That's true.
He's going to be at Kentucky this year. You know where Zach Calzada was last year? Incarnate Word.
Incarnate Word, yeah.
I
think I saw that Calzada was still, and I had to look at it and go, wait, that's Zach Calzada?
Yeah,
like,
really minor story. Zach Calzada.
Zach Calzadas.
When Zach was in the 6th or 7th grade, I coached at a camp that he came through. Nice. So I technically had hands on that.
Oh, okay.
Technically helped him get to the point he's at.
So you technically helped him never live up to the expectations of his recruiting ranking. That's what you did. Well, no, but to the point of Haynes, to your point about, and I want to go back to Baker for a second in this conversation, because they're all Texas high school quarterbacks, which is fascinating to me. Um, the thing that so what? Why did Baker? So again, I'll go all the way back to Drew Brees. My high school quarterback my freshman year was Drew Brees at Westlake High School in Austin, Texas. I was a freshman at Westlake. Drew Brees was a senior. Famously, did not get offers from any of the big power schools in Texas, including Texas or A&M. Right in the middle of Austin, did not get an offer from Texas. Why? Drew Brees was too short, and they didn't think his arm was strong enough. What did they say about Baker Mayfield? He was too short and didn't think the arm was strong enough. Almost identical. That is not the case with Cam Ward, a little bit taller, stronger arm. But what happens is these coaches, in particular Texas, they see the one thing that may cause you to make a question or raise a question. In Baker's case and Drew Brees' case, it was height. And I think in Cam Ward's case, it was sort of build. It was baby fat. It was not, he didn't look like a rocked up dude.
To quote what Daryl Dickey told me, he looked like a guy who hadn't been in the weight room yet. So you can look at it as, we sign him, he'll get in the weight room, or what's going to happen to him when he gets in the weight room.
Right. And so they're scared off by that when they have a more proven commodity who's played against higher level competition in a system that's more sort of geared towards passing the football at a high level. Ironically, Haynes King basically runs the triple option now. Very fun and very well, by the way, for Georgia Tech. Yeah. So it's just this perfect storm of what happens. And I totally get, and I've seen it too many times, why a power school team, a Jimbo Fisher who's a little stuck in his ways, who has a certain level of expectation, is not going to take the risk on the project necessarily. But it does not explain why the industry and the coaches all missed on like a 3-star level to go get a gig at one of these middle of the tier schools in Texas. That, like, Drew Brees famously ends up at Purdue with a scholarship offer. So Purdue's still a big time school at the time, or at least a power school at the time.
Yeah. And like in that same recruiting class, maybe a year later, another kid that Texas A&M did take, Devon Achane, had 2 offers. And this is a kid who was an Olympic speed track star. And he's from Houston proper.
Yeah.
And he did end up at A&M. But like there is something strange about what we think recruiters value.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the story here, is that Cam it worked out. But that doesn't mean it should have worked out. Like what was against him, he had to prove a lot to get there. And that's really impressive for him.
Well, and I'll see if I can do this off the top of my head here. But just looking at the number 1 overall picks, Caleb Williams was, I believe, a 5-star recruit, went to Oklahoma first.
Yep.
Bryce Young, I don't think he was a 5-star, but he was a very high level recruit.
He was the number 1 quarterback in his class.
Number 1 quarterback recruit. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall player.
Yeah.
With a bullet. Joe Burrow was famously a high 3-star recruit out of Ohio who goes to Ohio State. So there's Joe Burrow with the middle tier. Kyler Murray, 5-star recruit. One of the top rated quarterbacks in the country coming out of high school. Actually, ironically, did go to A&M first. Baker Mayfield, we just talked about, walk on, no star recruit. Jared Goff, I want to say
4, but
junior college, I thought, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't know.
Jared Goff's the one I'm drawing a blank on. Jameis Winston, famously 5-star recruit coming out of high school, one of the number 1 quarterbacks in the country. Andrew Luck, not a 5-star, a 4-star, but a top 50 player. I think he was number 3 quarterback in his class coming out. Very highly rated. Cam Newton was, I think, a 5-star recruit who went to Florida.
So. Yeah.
And then kicked out for stealing laptops, of course. Sam Bradford, 3-star recruit, lower rated than go back and look at Sam Bradford's quarterback class. I've done multiple stories on that class. I want to say it was like the 07 class, and it's just loaded with the best 3-star quarterbacks you've ever seen in your life. It's one of those where you just remember it. Like,
would that have been like Andy Dalton and Colt McCoy?
Yep. All 3-star recruits, and it's a really fun list to go back and look at. There's a good Nate Davis reference in there. So if you know Ball State quarterbacks, there you go. Matthew Stafford, 5-star recruit, number 1 quarterback in the country. Jamarcus Russell was a pretty big time recruit. Alex Smith was not. Eli Manning was. Carson Palmer was. So again, that's just the last 20 years of number 1 overall picks. Most of them are extremely highly rated.
Yeah.
A couple of them, Sam Bradford, Joe Burrow, and Baker Mayfield, you have 3 different outcomes. You've got elite superstar, you've got middle of the pack, and you've got broken chicken wing who didn't really achieve as much as he probably should have based on talent. I think that's a fair range to look at where Cam Ward is, which once again brings us back to Baker Mayfield. Yeah. Will he be better than Baker Mayfield? And if he is, you should take him.
Which leads to a mock draft, right? Go read the story. Thank you guys for listening. And I've got a bunch of other stuff at Tennessee. And if you guys want to, I ranked every first round pick in Titans era history. That's up today. If you guys want to go quibble with my rankings and say Isaiah Wilson was underrated, you can go do that if you'd like.
That's the thing that's the hill you're going to die on. Huh?
Those 4 plays really showed me something. But yeah, if you guys want to go check that out, I also spoke to a lot of NFL insiders, draft analysts, that sort of thing, kind of putting a bow on the last 30 years of Titans drafts, of trying to figure out why we are at the point where we're at. So yeah, go check out Tennessean.com.
I assume, how many total rounds? 28, 27?
How many total first round picks?
Yeah, no, well, total. Yeah, I guess that's true. How many total first round picks?
I think it's 26.
26. Okay, so is Isaiah Wilson number 26, I assume?
He is last, yes.
Okay, who was even in the conversation?
Farley and Will Folk would have been the other 2.
Will Folk, wow, that's a name I have not thought about.
Yeah, I think the bottom 5 were Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, Andre Woolfolk, Traylon Burks, and Chance Warmack, maybe?
Yikes. Like 3 of those are the same guy. Woo, brutal. Okay, go check that out. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue are 2 great sponsors for our charity draft party next Thursday and Saturday. You should come out and drink some bourbon, have some drinks, eat some meat, and watch some football drafting. It's great. It's going to be fun. And help kids the entire time. So if you love kids and you want to help support kids, you should absolutely come to these parties and enjoy yourselves and support some children. Okay? All right? It's all for kids.
Kids.
All right. I guess in Mock Draft 1.0, a football show, I guess Cam Ward at number 1 is what we're doing to start this conversation.
Ground rules here. Are we doing what we would do or what we think the Titans will do?
So I am doing what I think the Titans will do, which is, and we can have this conversation through each pick. We can say, these are the 2 or 3 players I might like here, or this is the position I would go after here. I think they'll do this. If you think there's a big enough convergence that's worth talking about, we're going to do that.
Okay.
This is a mock draft based on what we think the Titans are going to do.
Sure.
Because again, on the final pick, for example, there's a different player than what I would do versus what I think they're going to do. So
sure.
But we can have those conversations. So I think that's a good ground rule there for number 1. I was asked, and I'm sure you have as well, to make our official mock pick for number 1 for a particular member of the media. And I am stalling because I'm trying to figure out how not to pick Cam Ward at number 1 and be like every other media member on this list. Any chance that it's not Cam Ward? But there's a trade. There's a trade.
There is still a chance. It is a increasingly slim chance, but yeah, it's Cam Ward.
How about this? How about this? I'll give a football show audience the deciding call on this. Should I text Jim Wyatt back and say trade back is my prediction? Should I do that? If the audience says, the majority of you say I should do that, I will buck the trend just because of you guys. And then you all know when you
get in the comments. Tell us if Braden wants to trade back. Get in the comments, everybody. Tell us Braden's going to trade back. Yeah.
888-595. The text line. The text line brought to you by Barbecue. Okay. All right. Cam Ward number 1 for me. Cam Ward number 1 for you. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I have written down take the faller at 35. That is not what I think is going to happen. I think if the fallers, we've done this on the show. It's Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden at receiver. It's maybe it's Nick Scorton, maybe it's James Pierce, maybe it's Donovan Ozaraku. It's who knows. There could be names in there that could fall at edge or receiver to 35 that they can't pass up on. Could be good enough. I don't know who's officially on that list for them, but for the sake of my mock draft, I am trading back and picking up an extra pick. So you're moving back 5 to 10 spots. And in my case, I'm going to call it like 45 for the sake of this. And then picking in the 60s, maybe 70s.
Okay.
So that's sort of what I'm doing here with my mock draft. What are you doing at 35?
I am not going to make a trade, even though I think that is what will and should happen. I do think that a trade is incredibly likely. I can't guarantee it, but for the sake of
Why not?
for the sake of simplicity, for the sake of not having to remember what trades I've made, I'm going to stick and pick James Pierce. I do not know for certain that he will be there because obviously none of us do. The draft hasn't happened yet. And I know there are concerns. But one thing that has been a little bit overplayed is the drop off in production in 24, where I would argue there was not a significant drop off in production in 24. Dude was very good in 23 and was very good in 24. You have a guy who has the kind of production that usually gets you picked in the top 15 as an edge rusher. And there's a chance he's sitting there at 35. Does he get past the Eagles at 32? Maybe not.
I'm going to do
the Lions at 29 or whatever that is. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But like, if he's there, that is a don't overthink this, try and coach the guy kind of pick. And we all know the Titans picking a guy who maybe has commitment with a bit of. I'm still picking him. I'm picking the talent. This team needs top end talent. A mercurial edge rusher. Those are everywhere. Every team's got a mercurial edge rusher. The Titans already have one in Arden Key. Go get a first round talent at 35.
So we've been asked, Space City Tide says, do you have a pool of players that you would not trade back for? I think, to your point, Nick, James Pierce, from a talent standpoint, is 1,000,000% a player you do not trade back if he's on the board. He might be the most talented edge rusher in the class. He might be number 2 behind Abdul Carter. He might be number 1. He might be the most talented. I'm going to do the thing all the coaches just did to Cam Ward and be like, I don't know about this guy. What does everybody else know? If he falls all the way to 35, that also tells you something. Literally everybody said, no, we're not risking it for that. And if it's about, maturity or love of the game, and you can answer those questions internally, I do think from a talent perspective, he is a way overdrafted player at 35, meaning you're getting way more talent at 35 than you normally would. The two for me are Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka. If those two are available at 35, I am probably not trading back. I don't think Ozaraku or Scorton is worth keeping the pick. I don't.
I would.
From the edge perspective, unless somebody else falls, Mike Green, I don't know who's going to fall. If somebody else falls, then maybe. But I don't think Scorton or Donovan Ozaraku are two names I would absolutely, I've got to take this guy. I don't think they are.
Yeah, I think Ozaraku is probably the line. I would take him at 35. I don't know if I'd take Scorton at 35 because I think that's the line between who projects as a number 1 pass rusher and who projects as a number 2. I think Scorton is probably the best number 2 in this class. Number 2. But
just little lasers. I just want lasers.
But I don't know. I think that when we talk about these take the fallers, I don't think Egbuka's a faller. Like, I
don't think so. I don't think that he makes past the Packers at 22 or 23.
Packers at 22.
They're going to take him.
We've talked about the Broncos at like 24.
They're not. He's not falling.
I agree. 25. There's a lot of teams that would probably take Egbuka.
I agree.
Burden, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I think that he is a top 12, top 15 talent in this class, but similar situation to Pierce.
Yep.
Why is he falling? He did have a production drop off in 24. We can remark on that.
And he's a smaller, he doesn't have the physical imposing talent that Pierce has. So I think there's more to it. I think people are like, oh, he's Stephon Diggs. He's a little undersized. And then he's going to be Stephon Diggs. I think that's what I think he is. I think he's Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. So if Burden's there, we had the question of would they pass on Burden if he gets to 35?
I don't know if they love him though, as much as I do.
I don't know. I really don't know. But one thing that I do know is that historically it is easier to find productive receivers in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6 than it is to find A1 pass rushers in 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yep. Agreed.
So if Pierce is there, if Ozaraku's there, I think Mike Green goes in the top 15. But if for some reason he's there, Shamar Stewart, if one of these guys is there, right, I think you have to take him.
Jason says they're kind of in the worst position to be able to make a trade back. And I actually disagree with that. I
disagree.
Being at 35 almost guarantees you that like 2 to 5 players are going to fall. And if you don't love those guys, let's say it's Jackson Dart, you've already taken Cam Ward, and people want to come up and get the this year's version of Will Levis, somebody's going to come up and get him. Somebody's going to come up and get him. I think an offensive tackle could fall. If Josh Connerly falls to that spot, someone's going to come up and get Josh Connerly. If Ibuka or Braden or one of these other guys, like somebody's going to, there are going to be players there that people are going to be, oh, we didn't expect him to be available. Oh, all we got to do is give up a third-round pick. We want to go get this guy, especially
Jason,
on a team that's very good. So.
Yeah, Jason, over the last 5 years, there have been an average of 4 trades between pick 33 and 42. So each year, we get 4 trades in the first 10 picks of the second round.
That's a lot of
There is a lot of movement in this range of the draft. It is definitely the range where GMs get 20 hours of seeing draft grades of, oh no, Chad Reuter at NFL Network gave us a C+. Now we really have to move up and get that player who fell so we can get our draft grade up and fans can believe in us. And so if Dart's still there, that's a no-brainer. You can trade for that. Teams are going to get desperate for quarterbacks. But let's say all of the edge rushers and all of the receivers go. Intuitively, that means either the DBs are still on the board or the offensive linemen are still on the board.
Somebody's going to be good. Yeah.
If you've got a Donovan Jackson or a Gray Zabel still on the board, if you've got a Maxwell Hairston or Benjamin Morrison or
Xavier Watts,
if any of these guys are still on the board, somebody's going to get moved up for. And then you look at some of the people that got traded up for in recent years, and it's like, what are we doing? Like some of these early second-round picks of, who was it that the Falcons grabbed last year? The defensive tackle out of Clemson, Ruka Rororo.
Well, the Rams traded up to get Braden Fisk.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is out there, but Titans could have made that trade.
Yeah. So
decided not to.
And Sweat, good player.
Yeah, for sure.
But Sweat's another one who wasn't like a consensus top 30 guy who
could have probably gotten him at the pick had you traded back, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway,
nevertheless, I think, Jason, not to negate what you're saying, but I do think this is a fertile ground for trades.
Yeah, Jason, I will negate what you're saying. I think you're wrong, Jason. I hope to see you on Thursday. Always love Jason. All right, so I am trading back, and I'm going to say with pick 45. That's what I'm going to say here. With 45 and 70, just for the sake of ease conversation for everyone to remember, I am trading back to add a third-round pick. I'm trading back a few spots because I think there's a couple of edge players that are going to be in this range. You might have to go a few picks early to get one of these edge players. But I think I think all 3 of them could be available at pick 40 or 38 or 45 or whatever. Braden Swinson from LSU, Princely Umanmielen at Ole Miss, and the guy I'm taking because I think he screams, and this is not necessarily the player I would take, but this is my mock draft, is JTT out of Ohio State with pick 45.
I like that pick.
I think he reminds this team of Danico Autry from a professionalism standpoint. He is just dependable, professional. He's not super explosive and going to be a dynamic guy, but those guys go in the first round. But he's a dependable professional defensive lineman who can add value to the pass rush and add some depth to their pieces long-term. Build like him and Draymond. He actually kind of reminds me of Draymond Jones, to be honest with you. So I think I think those are the 3 names I would have circled there. There's a bunch of other names that I like, but that you could get later, whether that's Kyle Kennard or Jordan Birch or Josiah Stewart. Those guys are kind of late third-round picks, middle third-round picks. After those guys, there is nobody that is worth really taking. So with my first pick, I'm taking Cam Ward. Second pick, I'm trading back. I'm taking JTT, or I'm predicting the Titans take JTT out of Ohio State, which then means you don't have a third-round pick, but I do. And in my third-round pick, I'm going to say pick 70. I'm taking Elik Iomanor out of Stanford, wide receiver. I think that's where the Titans are going with this. He's got sort of Emeka Egbuka type skills in terms of ball skills. He can play in the slot. He can play over the middle. He's going to play in dirty areas. He has no problem being physical, huge catch radius, great hands, and a little bit better. He's not as athletic as Egbuka, but he's a very good player. So I think people are sleeping on him. I like Jalen Knoll. I like Jack Besh. And I think the Kyle Williams thing is real. So I think that the teammates at Washington State is not just a lazy comp or reason to mock him. I think that that's real, but I think he's 4th on the board of these 4. These are the 4 I would target at receiver with the 70th-ish, 75th-ish pick. I will take Iomanor out of Stanford because I think he's really good. And I think the Titans like the size to pair with Ridley. I think it works really well because you can run him in the slot and then he can shift outside later on in his career once you're done with Ridley. So I like
Go watch Iowa Manners tape from 2023 against Travis Hunter in Colorado. Just watch that game. You will be sold.
He is a very good football player, and I think he's been undervalued this entire process by me and by everybody else. So Ward, edge rusher, who's probably not a superstar, but is a nice contributing starting piece, and a receiver that can be your number 2 right away.
Mhm.
That's where I'm going with the start of the mock draft. Okay. Now we're at pick 4th round, pick 103. Where are you going?
All right, so I've got my quarterback. I have got my edge defender. I think at this point at 103, intuitively, the idea is pick a receiver here. I think there's going to be a bit of a run on receivers.
I agree.
I don't necessarily think that there is going to be a guy you should take at 103 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double up.
I like it.
I'm going to take Kyle Kennard.
Okay, he's available there. Okay.
I think Kyle Kennard is somebody who is going to be hanging around in the early 4th round. Maybe he goes in the 3rd, but with so many teams picking edge rushers early, I do think that there's going to be a bit of a lull in edge picks in the 3rd and 4th rounds. And so if Kennard is still on the board, I think kind of a best case scenario for this team, you double up off the edge, you allow Draymond Jones to kind of be the guy this year while you are training these two different kind of players. Pierce is a much more speed-oriented guy. Kennard, a little bit more power and technique type stuff. You pair them together, you let them grow together, and you make sure that this is not a problem again. That you have guys who can get after the quarterback. If you still need to go back to it next year, you're only picking it in the 1st round. You're only picking it because there's a guy who's a star.
Heard.
Now you have depth, you have that solidified, and you can move on.
So I have not mentioned this. I meant to do this ahead of time. Or sort of in real time. JTT is 53rd overall on the consensus big board. Princely Iman Mielin is 55. Braden Swinson is 65. The kid out of UCLA, Oladejo, is 69. Nice. Jordan Birch is another one, 71. Josiah Stewart, 80. Ashton Jaloit, who's we've not talked about, but is also in this group, at 92. Kyle Kennard, 96. So maybe he's there at 103, maybe not. Jared Ivey at 112. That's the line for me.
Yeah.
I draw the line right there. If you can get 2 of those guys, I'm on board with the plan.
Yeah.
If you have to go below Jared Ivey, I think you're waiting until Ja Joyner from Minnesota in the 6th round. You should be waiting on a player like that. But if you can get one of those guys, I see what you're doing, which is fix the problem permanently by throwing 2 darts instead of 1. That's one of the problems with the current number of picks they have, is that if you take Cam 1 without trading back, you have to hit on the edge player at 35, or like what I did with JTT, you have to hit on that guy. And it's hard to hit on edge rushers in the 2nd and 3rd round. It just is. So
sure.
Okay. Joe says great draft so far for me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, nobody likes it. It's okay.
I'm going 4th round, pick 103. I am taking Quincy Riley, cornerback out of Louisville. He is number 110 on the consensus mock board. I don't know if he's available here. The one guy, to your point about a guy who falls that I would take, who's maybe off the board, not a position of need, is Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon. If he falls, I think he is a better option for Cam Ward and for the offense than any of the other receivers that you would take at that slot. I don't like any of the receivers at 103. I'm not taking Tez Johnson or Deontay Thornton. Maybe he's available. I would almost take what I could consider maybe the best tight end outside of the 1st round, outside of Warren and Loveland. I love Ferguson, yak guy, yards after catch, big frame, can do everything. He's one of the few that I would look at at pick 103. But I'm taking Quincy Riley, cornerback out of Louisville. They need corner. I think corner's it's not what I would do, but I think they're taking a corner higher and earlier than we realize. And I think corner's a bigger concern for them. They want a lot of them. Snead, we don't know what he's going to offer this year. Brownlee's still developing. McCreary's maybe sort of pigeonholed into a slot position. I think they want another depth piece that they think can start next year or the year after. I think Quincy Riley at pick 103 is where I'm going out of Louisville. Plus, we know they had him in. We know they like him. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I like that. I will go ahead and say the guy that I'm considering but not going to take at 120 of my better version, I've always preferred Noel Williams over Quincy Riley. Those were the two guys we were talking about genuinely, you and I, at the Senior Bowl. These are the two players that I was the most confident would be Titans, whether it's Quincy Riley or Noel Williams.
Right.
I still prefer Noel Williams a little bit, and I think that there's a chance he could be there at 120. There is a temptation for me to take him at 120, but we talked about this last week. I think the fourth round is just, if Restrepo's there at 120, which it is very possible he will, given the picks that I have made of doubling up with Pearson Kennard at 35 and 103.
So is this your official pick at 120?
Restrepo is a guy I have to take at 120.
I don't know how he falls that far, but
what's he in the consensus right now? Like 122?
I'll pull it up. Quincy Riley 110, Noel Williams 117. I think Denzel Burke's another name to keep an eye on. Ohio State corner 97,
sure.
Number 97. Let me see here. Let me get the wide receivers pulled up.
Restrepo's 122. I just looked at it.
Yep, 122. Okay, all right. I don't like the player.
I get it.
I think he's I think he's a one-trick guy. He just does the one thing.
I don't like the player in the second round. I like the player in the fourth round.
That's fair. That's fair.
If he can be, what was his name? Adam Humphries? Was that his name?
Yes.
If he can be that guy for 2 years.
Kyle Phillips.
Good job. I think that is a solid pick. It is not a holy crap, the Titans have a true number 2 receiver pick. But if you combine it with some moves that hopefully I'm able to make later in the draft, I think it's fine.
Okay. Look, I think I agree that at 120, Restrepo is worth the risk, especially if you've not taken a receiver. And if you're looking to, I do think he is a more, like, I like his game. That was probably harsh when I said I don't like the player. Like, that's true. I don't like him at 35. And I think he got overinflated pretty early in the process and then quickly came back to reality, which is he's a 4th round pick. And I think, to your point, if you don't have somebody else and all you have is sort of Ridley and Bryce Oliver and Van Jefferson, I think he's a really good complementary piece. They've been trying to find a slot receiver for a long, long time.
Yeah.
They drafted Jackson. They drafted Phillips. They went and signed Humphreys. None of it worked. So I do think there's a lot of value there, especially with the player who played with the guy in college. So somebody said, any chance Kyle Williams is there at 103? It's possible. His consensus ranking is 90th. So in theory, the board is saying no. But if he is, that's certainly an option. The problem is you can't risk a receiver falling to you at 103 if you think you have to go get one of them, or you've got to trade back to add a pick to make sure you go get the guy you want, because otherwise we're talking about, Ricky Whites and Nick Nash and Jalen Lane and all decent, interesting players, not guys that are going to start.
I should also add that I am operating this as, if this happens, I also think the Titans are going to go sign a 30-year-old receiver to be their number 2.
So
I don't know if it's going to be Amari Cooper. I don't know if it's that high of a signing.
I would take Amari Cooper.
If it's Amari Cooper or Elijah Moore, there are receivers who are still available who can be a number 2 for a year. Like, let's think that.
All right, at pick 120, I'm going a little off the board here. I'm taking Latham Ransom, safety out of Ohio State. I think they view their secondary as a bigger need than we have talked about all season, or all draft season, I should say. So I think there's really good safety value in this range in the draft, and you can pick one of the better safeties. I see Jake has Makuba at 81 in his draft. I think that's interesting. I think Makuba's better than the guys I've got written down. But according to the consensus, you've got Billy Bowman at 103, Ransom at 123, Jonas Sanker at 132, Malachi Moore at 138, and Jalen Reed at 141. All of those guys could be starting corner safeties for your team. And if one of those guys is who you really like, for some reason, I think Ransom is the guy that screams Titan to me. But I think at 120, you've got a chance to take a bona fide starting safety, one of these 4 or 5 guys that you like. So I'm going to go corner safety, and they're going to double up on like cementing what Brian Callahan has said to us, which is he who passes the football best wins the game. And so far, they have a one safety who's pretty good, who gets hurt a lot, in Hooker. They got another guy who's a stopgap in Woods. They need a long-term solution here. So I think with Riley and Latham, with Ransom, you feel very comfortable about the future of your secondary with Brownlee and some of the other pieces there. So I know it's a little strange, and it's not how I felt they're going to go. I just think defensive back is further up their board than I previously thought. So I'm taking Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State, safety at pick 120. All right, 141. Where are you going?
141. I'm between two people. People who've listened to the show know I am a Malachi Moore guy. I like Malachi Moore. I think Malachi Moore is going to be a starter in the NFL. But I am picking Miles Frazier out of LSU. I think that is this who you have? Are we agreeing here?
I have two players, and I couldn't decide between them, and Miles Frazier is one of them.
Yeah, I'm picking Miles Frazier. I think that he is somebody who maybe because of the talent on this LSU offensive line got overlooked. I think he is a guy who can be an NFL starter. And that's what the Titans need in this range. A guy who you don't need him to be a starter day one. You need him to be a swing guard, your 7th, 8th offensive lineman. I think he can be that right now. He has the athletic traits and the potential to become a starting caliber guard down the line. But yeah, I am going to take him as a put him on the bench for a year, see how he develops kind of player here at 141.
I think this is absolutely the pick of an interior offensive lineman. Seth McLaughlin out of Ohio State is 134 on your list. Miles Frazier is 147. Jalen Rivers is 152, and Clay Webb is 213. I think those are the four names that I love. If you want to tackle, there's other names. Anthony Belton could be there potentially as well. He could fall at NC State. I'm taking Jalen Rivers, but it was between Rivers and Frazier. So with this pick at 141, I'm taking Jalen Rivers, interior offensive lineman, who I think he'll shift inside. He's listed kind of as a tackle for Miami, but I think he shifts inside. I think both those guys are really good picks, and I think all four of those names. This is why, like, to me, safety is really good at 120. I think offensive line is really good at 141. You can get really good value. You could get a piece that will be your starting interior offensive lineman with one of these 3 or 4 players. I think if you do it right. So I'll take Jalen Rivers out of Miami. You've got Miles Frazier out of LSU. I think both are fantastic picks. Pick 167. This is the wild card pick for me. You could do second receiver. You could do second edge rusher. You could do a lot of different things. Where are you going with 167?
I am going to keep on pandering to those Vols. I've already got James Pierce. Give me Dante Thornton at 167.
You think he's available there?
I don't, but the consensus does.
Yeah, no, the consensus is way off on him. I think he's like a 3rd-round pick.
If you want me to I can take a different player, but I'm just going based off of the consensus here.
Yeah, that's okay. No. Go off the consensus. My reaction to that is great pick. I think he's like a late 3rd-round pick. Like, I think he's on par with Kyle Williams from where people are grading him, because they're going to look at Nico and be like, Nico sucks. Deontay Thornton was open all the time.
Yeah,
which he was.
He could not be a more opposite project than Xavier Restrepo. And I think that is what makes the pairing tantalizing to me. You grabbed Restrepo to be a guy who is going to catch a lot of 6-yard in routes. There is no receiver who I have spent more time jokingly slandering in the last decade than Jarvis Landry. Just because, like, oh yeah, you want a guy who's going to catch a 7-yard pass and get tackled? Go get Jarvis Landry. But like Restrepo, you got to have those players sometimes. Restrepo can be that guy, and Dante Thornton can be your bet on the athleticism guy. This is a traits guy. I do not love traits guys. I tend to like polished players, but if you're doubling up at receiver, you don't want to get 2 slots. You don't want to get 2 speed threats. You want to diversify. And I think that the pairing of Restrepo and Thornton, especially with Cam Ward, diversifies. I think that at this point, I have now drafted your quarterback, and then your other 2 biggest needs I've doubled up on. I've gotten 2 edge rushers, 2 receivers, and a value pick at an offensive line.
Yeah, there's no question. And starting linebacker, safety, corner. We'll see what happens. I kind with Ayu Manor. He's not a huge frame, but he's a little bit more of an outside guy. He can play in the slot. He's not a true traditional slot player. But that's why this pick is so complicated for me, because I think you could take, if you wanted to double up in my case on an edge player, That's where you could go. All right, is Jared Ivey still available? Is Ja Joyner out of Minnesota still available? I like Tyler Batty out of BYU as well. Potentially interesting. I'm not a Tyler Barron guy, but if you found a guy that you really love as a flyer at edge player, you could, for my draft, you could double up there. Your strategy is a little bit more sound because you got guys in that top 100 basically. I think this is also a great spot to go double up at receiver, which in my case was opposite, kind of flipped because I have Ayu Manor is my first pick. Jalen Lane would be a really solid pick here, a guy that's a little bit more dependable, a little bit more in the slot, a guy that's got a little bit more speed. You can use him in a different way than Ayu Manor. I'm taking Jeffrey Bassa at linebacker because I think this is also, okay. Should they love Jay Higgins? That's also an option here. One of those middle linebackers could fall to this spot at 167, whether that's Small London, whether that's Barrett Carter out of Clemson. I don't think so, but it's possible if one of those guys falls. Getting a middle linebacker to pair with Cody Barton and to press Cedric Gray and James Williams with some experience, I think you could go. I like Bassa, who was the most athletic linebacker at the Senior Bowl. I've been on his. I mean, you and I were talking about him, how much I like him. This one's a little bit more like I'm wishing it into existence because I don't know if the Titans have talked much about him at all. But I think Jeffrey Bassa is a really good player, and I would take him at 167 and be like, look, let's plug him in and see what happens and have him compete with guys. I think he's just a good player who also played behind lots of big, manly, meaty guys at Oregon. And if you're going to play middle linebacker for the Titans, you're going to play behind some big, manly, meaty guys up there in the front line with Sweat and Simmons. So give me Jeffrey Bassa, linebacker at 167. 178, where are you going?
Give me 1 second as my computer struggles to load something while I pick between two people. You pick your pick.
Okay, 178, Jackson Hawes, tight end, Georgia Tech. Formerly of Yale, super smart guy. I love the sort of I can do everything player who's going to help you in all facets of the game. He is not a game changer. He is not going to run down the seam and catch passes and break tackles, but he's a dependable professional. He's not Craig Stevens either, so let's not go crazy. I'm not drafting like an only blocker at this pick, but I think in a tight end class that's very deep, I think he's super, super smart, super dependable, very physical, can do a little bit of everything, has played in a very professional offense that is the Todd Monken system that Georgia Tech runs, as we were talking about Haynes King earlier. I think he's a really, really smart player, and I think he is a guy that they've had. I'm just very impressed by him throughout the course of this. I think they're going to take a tight end. I think they're going to take one late, and I like Hawes as the target late in the draft at pick 178. How do we feel about that?
I don't like tight ends in this draft. You've heard me talk about this. I just don't want to pick a tight end. I don't like these guys. I'm not impressed by these guys.
Wow, not impressed by these guys. I think it's a really good class. Somebody said if Harold Fannon's available in that range, I'm assuming you're talking like in the 70s or 80s, right? In the third round, maybe you take him instead of a receiver. Yeah. He could be a glorified receiver for the record. So, all right, you don't like tight ends. Right. I think it's a really good class. Where are you going?
178 here. I love players who we thought were top 100 picks, but aren't anymore. I hold on to early draft ratings because those are the ratings based off of I watched college football.
So you're like the Cam Ward of mock drafts. You got receipts.
I like guys who fell because the draft people were like, oh, there are questions about this and that, and the stuff's not football related. So I am going to, at 178, pick Mello Dotson. I think this is a player who, if we talked about this back in October, that's a day 2 cornerback. That's a 6'1" rangy corner. He doesn't have elite speed. I'm going into Mel Kiper cadence here. I'm sorry, but I'm picking a guy who is not going to be your 4-3 on the perimeter burner. He's probably more of a zone corner. The Titans might have to use him more as a nickel situation, but he's got that height that the Titans covet. The Titans are never going to draft a small corner under this regime. You've got the height, you've got the physicality, and you've got the ball skills. The dude gets his hand on the football, whether he's breaking up passes or intercepting passes. I'm taking Mello Dotson, and I am installing him as that 4th or 5th option at cornerback.
210 in the consensus rankings there, about 60 spots behind teammate Kobe Bryant. That's right. There's a Kobe Bryant for Kansas who, when I talked to Matt Miller about Travis Hunter, he said, I saw Travis Hunter and Kobe Bryant on the same field together. They're the same size player. And Kobe Bryant's listed at like 181. And so that's the reason. That's some of the questions around Travis Hunter. I think they're going to take a corner no matter what. I like Jalen Smith out of USC. later because of the speed and athleticism. I like him, but you're kind of going a different direction, which is about the size. There's not a lot of guys. I like the Za Frazier out of UTSA, but he might be long gone by this pick. But he's another guy to keep an eye on. I think he's really talented. Robert Longerbeam is another one out of Rutgers to keep an eye on.
Yep.
Also will be available around here. Muhammad out of Oregon. They're absolutely taking a corner. They're going to take a corner, and I just don't know where it's going to be. So I like that pick a lot. I took a tight end. All right, pick 188 to wrap this bad boy up. I am taking LaKeith Allen out of Syracuse, running back. That's not the guy I would take necessarily. I love Jarquez Hunter. I love Woody Marks. I love all the guys going earlier, Ollie Gordon, Damian Martinez. The guy to keep an eye on is Mullings out of Michigan. I would really keep an eye on him. I think people are going to really like him late. But I'm going to take Allen on a hunch because I think they really like him. So LaKeith Allen, Syracuse running back, add a piece to the backfield and give Cam Ward another. Like Jackson Haas, LaKeith Allen help with the running game along with Rivers and their investment in the offensive line. You go get Ayu Manor and another veteran receiver to go with Cam Ward. You put a lot of pieces around Cam with Brian Callahan calling the shots. So,
yeah, I'm taking Jarquez Hunter. You mentioned him. I think that.
I hope they like him.
I have probably been somebody in this process who has ignored the instruction of do what you think the Titans would and picked guys that Nick Suss likes a little bit too much. But I do think there is a high likelihood of overlap here. Jarquez Hunter does the things the Titans need a number 3 running back to do. He is accustomed to playing in a rotation from his days playing with Tank Bigsby at Auburn. He is a 4-year contributor in the SEC. He has power and he knows how to break tackles. He is exactly the profile of running back the Titans need to add. I thought about Jay Higgins here, QC Hawk, if that is what you're yelling about.
QC's a big Iowa fan, so
I thought about Jay Higgins, but I ultimately am going to pick Jarquez Hunter. So
I'm going to give you a second to organize all of them because I need you to do all of them. Like I need you to list off your whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll give you mine. Here's what mock draft a football show 1.0. At the first pick in the draft, the Titans get their quarterback of the future in Cam Ward. No brainer. Everyone's predicting this, so I'll stick with it. With the 35th pick, they trade back and they get 2 picks, one in the second, one in the third, and they take JTT, edge rusher out of Ohio State, solving a problem of need and getting a talent there. And of course, they take Elic Iomanor, the wide receiver out of Stanford as well. That's answering the question, what do they do at receiver around Cam Ward? With the 4th pick, with the 4th round pick, at pick 103, they get Quincy Riley, a player we know they like, to add value and depth to their secondary out of Louisville. They draft safety Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State with their other 4th round pick. In the 5th round at pick 141, they come back and get Jalen Rivers, a guard and interior lineman out of Miami. At 167, we go Jeffrey Bassa, linebacker out of Oregon, to add some speed and athleticism to that group. Jackson Haas, tight end out of Georgia Tech, with pick 178 in the 6th round, and they wrap it up with a running back that can do a little bit of everything, LaKeith Allen out of Syracuse. There you go. What was your mock draft, Nick?
My mock draft was first round, round 1, pick 1, Cam Ward. Second round, round 2, pick 35, James Pierce Jr., edge rusher, Tennessee. Round 4, pick 103, Kyle Kennard, edge rusher, South Carolina. Round 4, pick 120, Xavier Restrepo, wide receiver, Miami. Round 5, pick 141. Is that the number?
Correct.
141, I drafted Miles Frazier, offensive lineman, LSU. Round 5, 167, off the top of my head.
Yep.
I drafted Dante Thornton, wide receiver, Tennessee. Round 6, pick 178, I drafted Mello Dotson, cornerback, Kansas. And rounding it out, round 6, pick 188, I drafted Auburn running back, Jarquez Hunter.
So a quarterback, 2 edges, 2 receivers, an interior offensive lineman, a corner, and a running back. I think that's pretty sound. It's a pretty sound strategy. So there you go. Mock draft 1.13.0, 15.0. I don't know what mock draft that is for you, but I do appreciate you playing along. And all of you hanging out in the comment section, we do appreciate you guys. We're 1 week away. We have some plans for you for next week, of course, not just the draft party, but Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Check out the draft party tickets. Come out and hang out with us. It's going to be great. But also, we're going to have lots of live content for you when the Titans go on the clock on Thursday night. PK and I are going to do our final preview on Monday on a football show. Make sure you're listening to the PK podcast. Subscribe to the Tennessean. and to his website as well. And Nick and I got plans for you guys late next week around the draft as well. So lots of content coming for you guys next week. So stay tuned. There are your mock drafts. Tell everybody it's the only mock draft that matters.
Before we log off,
mock draft
we'll
1.0.
We'll banter for a second.
Sure.
Comments. Vote Nick or Braden. Who did a better mock draft? Whose would you
Ooh.
prefer? We will banter for a second about what do you think they meant when they said Nick do a Zombieland? What does that mean?
I don't. All I know from that movie, first of all, phenomenal movie. One of the best movies.
Really good.
One of the more underrated movies of our generation.
But
Bill Murray dying. Bill Murray dying is one of my favorite scenes of all time.
Yeah, my second favorite movie of that era, starring Jesse Eisenberg with the word "land" in the title. Love them both, but I'm more of an Adventureland guy. But
and then Emma Stone's like, even when you're dying, you're funny.
Yeah.
So
good movie.
So
but
good. Hang on. Did I get a laugh out of Mrs. Suss earlier?
You did.
That's what I thought.
You've gotten, I believe, 2 laughs
in one show.
Yeah, and here's the thing:
why can she hear me?
My headphones are broken, so we're just going. The last 3 or 4 shows, every Wednesday, I'm like, I forgot to buy headphones. I guess I'm doing it without headphones.
The company can help you with that, Nick. Come on, we're not.
I've been genuinely
hard up, dude.
Genuinely, the last couple of the last couple of months, I have been using crappy airplane free headphones because I left my good headphones in New Orleans.
All right. Order some good headphones and send 440 the bill. Let's go, dude.
No, thank you.
We'll take care of that.
We'll figure it out.
Take care of that.
Don't
You're
you like
doing work for me? Let's go.
Don't you like having my wife validating your jokes and never laughing at me?
That I do. Because strangely enough, my wife doesn't laugh at any of my jokes either.
Same, totally. I will never be offended by her looking at another man, but I will be offended by her laughing at jokes that are not mine. It is the main thing that will make me insecure about my life.
Oh, does Braden wish he could be at Lambeau? No, I do not. Not for the draft. Not for the draft. If it's Lambeau Field is a mecca that every football fan needs to go visit for a game. I've been many times for football games. It's exquisite. I don't need to watch little football players hundreds of yards away walk across the stage. I don't need that. I did it here. It was a great party. I covered it. It was an extraordinary experience. I'm not traveling for that.
And then when you get back from Lambeau, please remember to call a rideshare service.
If you know, you know. The beginning of the end of the entire Mike Vrabel era that night. Actually, it was the last win I think he had as the coach of the Titans, right? Was this the win over the Packers?
He won 6 games the next year.
Oh, that's right. They coached. He coached another year after that.
His last win was the time Derrick Henry beat the Jaguars the last time.
That's right. I forgot about that. And then Derrick had a whole send off. I'm blocking out the years, my guy. I'm blocking out the years. Just want to. When my kids ask me for something, I just the thing I always tell them, I'm just doing more Austin Powers at this point, because one person has voted for you, and I need to stall here to get more comments and voting for my draft, please. Thank you. They always ask like, hey, why can't I have this? Why can't I have? Kids are constantly asking for stuff. Why can't I have this? Why can't I have this? And I go, look, I would like a toilet made of solid gold and a seal that barks my name, but it's just not in the cards, honey.
Becca, hand me the prop. No,
is it a toilet made of solid gold?
No, it's close enough though.
Hand me the prop.
Here's our framed sketch of Goldmember with a
sketch of Gold
smoking a pancake.
Oh, that's so good. You guys have some weird shit in your house.
That's a pipe and a crepe. Sorry, not a smoke and a pancake.
They're very, very, very thin pancakes. Very thin pancakes.
Yes.
All right.
I have 3 Mike Myerses in this room at any given time.
Send that text to Jim live. You're trading back. Okay. All right. That's it. We're done. Nobody voted on our draft. Nick wins 1-0.
Happy draft.
Everybody, we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Make sure you go to Sinker's Beverages. Make sure you go to Shotgun Willie's Barbecue and buy some tickets to the draft party. Help some kids. You heathens.
Help the kids.
For Nick, I'm Braden. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.